Planning for a spring vacation begins in winter, so a tour of Portugal and Spain in March of 2018 sounded like a great idea. Sunny Portugal and Spain, what's not to like? I picture beautiful spring weather and pleasant temperatures. What I did not picture was rain, lots of rain. As the day of departure approaches, I check the forecast for Portugal and Spain and see an endless line of storms waiting to hit the Iberian Peninsula at 2-day intervals. With this forecast, my dreams of a sunny vacation fade away as I pack my umbrella and rain jacket. It is the wettest spring in Europe in years. But the countryside is green, the rivers are full, and the clouds between the storms are fabulous. I have a great time. The journey begins in Lisbon, Portugal. From Lisbon, we take a day trip to Sintra to tour a castle and return to Lisbon for overnight. After another day of exploring, we leave Lisbon and make our way to charming Évora. After Évora, we make a short stop in Mérida and then on to Carmona, Spain for overnight. The overland journey to Ronda, Spain is next, and then we journey to Úbeda, and from there to Madrid, our final destination via Toledo. Lisbon, Portugal is one of the oldest cities in the world, predating other modern European capitals such as London, Paris, and Rome by centuries. Let's just say it has a long and complicated history, ruled at times by Romans, a series of Germanic tribes from the 5th century, and the Moors in the 8th century. In 1147, the Crusaders reconquered the city, and since then it has been a major political, economic, and cultural center. Our day in Lisbon starts with a visit to Hieronymus Monastery, one of the most beautiful buildings in Portugal. Its construction was funded by a tax levied on spices flowing into Portugal, which raised a lot of money to build one of the greatest architectural masterpieces in Portugal. I don't know which is more magnificent, the outside or the inside of this fantastic building. Secularized on December 28, 1833, it is now open to the public and is one of the most ornate former religious buildings of Portugal. Early explorer Vasco da Gama spent his last night here before his epic voyage to India. His tomb lies within the former monastery. Later, the church was the location where wives of sailors came to pray for the safe return of their loved ones. A short distance from the monastery is the Discoveries Monument on the banks of the Tejo estuary. The left side of the monument illustrates the great Portuguese explorers of the Golden Age of Discovery. Prince Henry the Navigator is at the head of the monument, and Vasco da Gama is represented by the third figure. The monument is designed to look like the bow of a boat, overlooking the estuary, with the rear representing the Latin cross. On the other side of the monument are those who financed the voyages of discovery. Walking toward the Bellum Tower, I fight the wind and rain, and I'm feeling pretty happy that I'm able to stay dry. The tower was built to guard Lisbon from attack by ships from the sea. Built in the center of the estuary, the flow of water has changed and is now located on the banks of the estuary. The rain lets up as we start our walk through the old part of Lisbon at a spectacular viewpoint overlooking the estuary. In the gardens of the Church of Santa Lucia are some beautiful tile images. The sun breaks out at just the right time to capture the great view over the tiled roofs and churches of Alfama. From here we descend through the narrow streets and alleys of Alfama, where we twist and turn our way to the bottom. So many interesting things to see. I capture some of my experiences with my camera while trying, not very hard, to keep up with the group. Street art is popular in Lisbon, and we find some murals of Portuguese history in the alleys of Alfama. Larger murals can be found all over the city. This abandoned building makes a great canvas for an artist to build a picture of a fox out of recycled trash. With the afternoon to ourselves, I explore part of Lisbon. Venturing out of our hotel, I walk down the park-like Avenue of Liberty towards the estuary. The street is lined with many stately buildings, inviting tiled walking paths, and trees for shade. Halfway down the easy stroll to the estuary, I suddenly realize that I need to climb back up the hill if I want to enjoy a view of the city from the high point before sundown. Yikes! Time to turn around. I abruptly reverse my walk and make my way to a park on the hillside, a lush open space with a great view over Lisbon down the Avenue of Liberty. Next to the park is a yellow building with stunning blue tiles decorating the facade. As the sunlight fades and afternoon becomes evening, I reflect on the wonderful day I have had exploring Lisbon. Our goal today is a day trip to Sintra to visit the colorful Pena Palace and to visit the touristy town of Sintra. It is an on-again, off-again kind of rainy day. Raincoats and umbrellas handy, away we go on the bus. Walking toward the palace, it is plain to see that this is a palace like no other. The first thing that strikes you are the colors of the palace walls, a combination of bright yellow, orange, and a blue-gray. As you get closer, the details of the palace emerge, and you begin to think that 2, 3, or even 4 architects designed different parts of this palace and somehow put it all together. Or maybe it's a movie set, or you've been somehow transported to Disneyland. But it is all real, and so romantic in style. It is an intentional blend of medieval, Renaissance, Neo-Gothic, Neo-Islamic, and Neo-Renaissance styles, somehow delightful and peculiar, all at the same time. The castle was started in the Middle Ages as a small, quiet monastery for meditation, but in the 18th century the monastery was severely damaged by lightning, followed by an earthquake. In 1838, Ferdinand II hired an architect to transform the remains of the monastery into a palace for the Portuguese royal family. King Ferdinand spent much of his later life in the palace with his second wife. In 1889, it was turned into a national monument and museum to become one of Portugal's most visited monuments. The interior of Pena Palace is equally fascinating, being restored to how it was in 1910, when the monarchy fled Portugal to Brazil to escape the revolution. In 1995, the palace and the cultural landscape of Sintra were classified as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. After our fascinating visit to the palace, it is time to spend about an hour in Sintra before heading back to Lisbon for the night. A building that dominates the historic center of Sintra is the Gothic Renaissance-styled National Palace. Its huge cone chimneys extend from the palace's kitchens above the skyline of Sintra. The medieval palace was in continuous use from the 15th century through to the 19th century by the Portuguese nobility. I walk around the exterior of this remarkable building, no time to do a tour, amid bouts of rain and sun. Hanging out with other tourists on the porch of the National Palace, I wait for a sudden downpour to end. The shower is over as quickly as it began. It is still early in the tourist season, so the small historic town with steep cobblestone streets was not yet crawling with too many tourists. I take some time to explore the narrow streets and shops of Sintra. No wonder it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We traveled to the farmlands and fields outside of Lisbon to discover the tradition of cheese making. After lunch at the farm, we will visit a tile factory and try our hand at decorating some of the tiles. Sounds like a fun day. The blue and white building with the big friendly dog is the place where the cheese will be made. The warm sheep's milk with rennet added is ready to separate the curd from the whey. Several people in our group get down to the business of draining the whey from the curd and pressing the curd into the small cheese molds to make fresh cheese for our lunch at the farm. A well-earned lunch of cheese, wine, and fresh bread is enjoyed by all. At the tile factory, we learn about the process of making and decorating handmade tiles. The fresh clay is cut into 4-inch squares that are ready to decorate. Great examples of beautiful tiles made by the artists show us what works of art can be made with experience and skill. Choosing colors and patterns, we all do the best we can with our limited skills and experience. It is actually fun trying to make something to take home as a souvenir from Portugal. We pack our bags and say goodbye to Lisbon to begin our overland journey to Evora. The bus passes through landscape covered in vineyards, cork trees, and olive groves. 3 stops are on the schedule that breaks up the day's travel. The small but picturesque village of Arreios is known throughout the world for its hand-embroidered wool carpets. But the only sign of life this morning in the village is a group of elders discussing the day's gossip as we make our way to the Carpet Museum. The village square is near the museum and provides ample opportunity for some photography. Carpet making has been a local industry for many centuries. The oldest rug patterns were influenced by Persian and Turkish designs when Muslims were forced to leave Lisbon in 1496. They migrated south to Arreios, where the area was more tolerant of their religion. Instead of being woven carpets, however, these carpets are cross-stitched onto a canvas backing. Leona has fun learning the art of cross-stitching a carpet design. While we are watching Leona in the museum, Carmen, our guide, sneaks out to buy some mini chicken pies from the local bakery as a surprise for us. Another yummy day. Excellent local wines are produced at this lovely estate and winery, where we have our next stop. First, there's a lengthy discussion about wine production, where we listen with varying degrees of attention. This is followed by an in-depth tour of the winery and the bottling plant, where the sound of bottles clinking is nearly deafening. Now it is time to try some of that wine. With a bounteous luncheon provided by the winery, there's plenty of wine to go around. A wonderful meal and great wine. I could get used to this. We have been seeing fields of cork trees all along the way, and I'm thinking about the mystery of what the Portuguese do with all that cork, besides making stoppers for wine bottles. At a cork factory, we get to see how cork bark is prepared to make all sorts of things. The bark is stripped from trees like this one and stacked on pallets outdoors to cure and dry. A cork oak can be stripped of its bark like this many times during its lifetime. Cork oaks are harvested every 9 years once they reach maturity. It doesn't harm the tree, and the cork bark regrows. After curing, a forklift moves the bark to a large vat full of boiling water, where it is weighted down and boiled for 30 minutes. It is then stacked inside the warehouse to dry again. This process makes the cork flexible, waterproof, and tough enough to make handbags, shoes, and even hats. The possibilities are endless. After everyone gets a chance to purchase something made from cork, we head for Evora and our pousada for the night. You may be wondering, what is a pousada? Pousadas are historic buildings that have been converted into hotels, and we are lucky enough to stay in a former convent that has been beautifully restored. The rooms where the monks used to sleep are now modestly furnished, but very comfortable rooms. The view of the courtyard from our room overlooks the swimming pool. Too bad it's too cold to go for a swim. The hallways remind me that this was once a convent, but the public rooms are warm and inviting. What a great location! Everything within the old city walls is easily reached on foot. Time to explore. The Roman ruin known as the Temple of Diana is located in one of the city squares, right near the hotel. The temple was actually dedicated to the Emperor Augustus, but it was decided to call it the Temple of Diana to attract more tourists. The other major attraction of Evora is the strange and compelling Chapel of Bones. It is a kind of morbid curiosity that makes you want to visit the place. I am drawn in, almost against my will. As I enter, the spectacle of the skulls and bones of over 5,000 exhumed bodies that were used to line the walls and columns of the small chapel make me wonder whoever thought it was a good idea. It turns out the Franciscans, wanting to make more room in the cemeteries, exhumed the bodies. Then they had a pile of bones. What do you do with a pile of bones? Not wanting to just throw them away, the monks decided to decorate the chapel as a reminder of the transitory nature of life. How very thrifty of them. The creepiness is compounded by the wording above the entrance, which reads, "We bones are here, waiting for yours." Not yet, I decide, so after a brief visit, I escape outside. After this sobering visit, we disperse to explore the old town on our own. The central square is busy with people shopping and gossiping after the rain shower. Evora's quaint cobblestone streets are a delight to explore. And, of course, shops line the main streets, loaded with items designed to tempt tourists. I want to take it all home, but I shop only with my eyes and camera. There is a great selection of handbags made from cork. Where else in the world can you find so many useful items made from the bark of a cork tree? Tonight is going to be a fun night, a Portuguese cooking lesson, and we get to eat what we cook. All the ingredients for a wonderful dinner are laid out before us. Our chef makes sure we get down to business right away. After donning our aprons, our cooking lesson begins, and we organize into workstations while we talk and drink wine. I'm in the group that prepares the side dishes and the dessert. Flame-grilled chorizo sausage, chickpeas and tuna with olive oil and garlic, vinaigrette carrots seasoned with cilantro, and an egg pudding with almonds and lemon juice for dessert. We say goodbye to Portugal and cross into the Spanish province of Extremadura, heading for Carmona. Extremadura is a lightly populated farming region of Spain. Merida, the capital city of this region, has some of the best preserved Roman ruins in all of Europe. The 2,000-year-old Roman bridge made from granite serves as a footbridge over the river, since a new bridge was built in 1993. The amphitheater and theater are located right next to each other. The complex served as an entertainment center for the Romans. After watching men and animals fight to the death in the amphitheater, spectators could then finish off the evening entertainment with a play performed in the theater. The fights drew large crowds that paid entrance fees to view the spectacles. It was a terrific moneymaker for the government. By late 400 AD, the amphitheater was no longer in use, and its walls were scavenged for building blocks to construct new buildings. We admire the beauty of the restored back wall of the theater's stage. A photo of the stage taken on a sunny day reveals more of the beauty of the reconstruction. Today the theater is used to perform classical theater. The back wall of the theater may have looked like this during Roman times. A statue of the goddess of agriculture that once graced the magnificent back wall of the theater is housed in the nearby museum. Also in the museum is the Roman bridge pictured here in pre-automotive times, a window into the past. I am looking forward to a quiet day in Carmona, exploring its Roman ruins and cobblestone streets in the walled part of Old Town. But the morning dawns with a heavy downpour of rain and continues on for most of the morning, so I find myself confined mostly to the lovely Parador de Carmona. Our Parador is a former Moorish fortress high on the bluff where Old Carmona is located, overlooking the central plain of Andalusia. Getting restless, Tom and I do venture out, only to get completely soaked before heading back to the Parador. Pausing in doorways to try to read our sodden map, I attempt to open the map, but it is clear that it is turned back into the pulp from which it was made. So much for the map. We ask for directions and slosh our way back through the streets to our warm and dry hotel. After drying out our pants and shoes in the window, I venture out after the rain stops to see the Andalusian plain stretching out before me. I am rewarded with a perfect post-storm light breaking through the clouds. The late afternoon sun and clouds is a photographer's dream. and I am told that our day in Ronda should be rain-free. Cross your fingers. Ronda is a hill town of indescribable beauty and was a favorite of Ernest Hemingway and Orson Welles. Our journey today passes through some of the most beautiful landscapes of southern Spain, also known as Andalusia. This is the land of Spain's famous white villages. The largest of these white villages is Ronda. Ronda is known as the birthplace of modern bullfighting, so it is natural to stop at one of the many bull breeding ranches in Andalusia on our way to Ronda. The owner is there to teach us about the breeding of bulls for the sport of bullfighting. The Spanish fighting bull is primarily bred free-range on extensive estates with little contact with humans. They are slow-growing, muscular animals with long horns for fighting. When the cattle reach maturity after 2 years or so, the males are sent to test if they are suitable for the bull ring. Fighting bulls are selected primarily for a certain combination of aggression, energy, strength, and stamina. Whether you like it or not, bullfighting is important to the history and culture of Spain. After visiting the bulls in the field, we enter the practice ring to get a feel for the art of bullfighting. We enjoy watching children play bullfighter. Then it is time for one of us to take a turn. After some instruction from the owner, the bullfight begins. The ranch also breeds and trains Andalusian horses. A beautiful spirited animal enters the ring as the trainer takes the horse through a brief exercise using a lunge line. It is a privilege to visit the ranch and our gracious host. Changes in Spanish culture may soon end this way of life. So excited to be here after years of having it on my bucket list. I am awestruck by the beauty of its setting overlooking the gorge. This drone footage of Ronda is so beautiful, I just had to include it in my presentation. After spending several summers in Ronda, Ernest Hemingway wrote, "It is Ronda one must visit if traveling to Spain on your honeymoon or with a girlfriend. The entire city and its surroundings are a romantic setting. Lovely promenades, fine wine, excellent food, nothing to do." Hemingway's novel about the Spanish Civil War, For Whom the Bell Tolls, describes how prisoners were beaten to death and thrown from a cliff into the river. During the war, prisoners were actually thrown from this bridge into the gorge. The city hall next to the bridge is where the prisoners were held and is now a hotel with a great location. To avoid the crowds and to greet the morning, I'm out early waiting for the dawn to come. The streets are quiet and traffic is minimal at this hour. At last the blue hour comes before dawn. The oldest bridges in Ronda can be seen far down in the gorge. In the 1400s, when the Moors ruled Ronda, the gorge and the bridge crossing it provided a great defense. Today the ravine divides Ronda into two. With the old Moorish side on the south and the relatively new town on the north. The new bridge, built in the 1700s, connects the two sides of Ronda. The first great bull ring was built in Ronda in 1785 and is known as the spiritual home of modern bullfighting. It is the dream of every aspiring bullfighter to fight in Ronda. In the 18th century, Pedro Romero, a legendary bullfighter, established the rules of modern bullfighting in Ronda. A walking tour of the old Moorish part of town is a delight to the eye as we wander down the narrow cobblestone streets, wondering what is just around the corner. Some of the grand homes await new owners to bring them back to their former glory. On one of these back lanes we are delighted to meet an artisan and his son that make chairs, both big and small, from found wood that they collect when trees are trimmed. The small workshop is nearly hidden by a collection of chairs crowding the entrance. Each chair is unique, and some are quite imaginative. He and his son work as a team to make these works of handcrafted art. What a wonderful man! His eyes gleam with passion for his craft as he and his son show us some of their work. He had been recently widowed, so I think part of that gleam was for some of the ladies in our group. We pose for photos before saying goodbye. I catch Tom viewing one of the many churches of Ronda. More doors and windows, a favorite of mine. Washington Irving also spent some time in Ronda and wrote these words about his experience here. Last night, stormy wind, rain. Look out from window. Beautiful effect of moonlight breaking through the mist on bridge. White houses along the banks of the river ravine. We are in for a treat, a special visit to a house in the heart of Old Ronda with views of the gorge. The home is a retreat and retirement home for Catholic priests. Only the ground floor and the gardens are open to the public. I rush out to the terrace overlooking the gorge and the new high bridge. I lean as far as I dare over the railing to get my shot. Tom had a surprise on this trip. Betty went to the same high school as Tom, but they did not meet until they were on the same trip. The red and yellow colors contained in the Spanish flag represent the colors of the original Spanish kingdoms, and a coat of arms containing the Pillars of Hercules. The green flag represents the state of Andalusia. In the afternoon, some of us choose to walk down the steep path a short way into the gorge to get a closer view of the bridge. It is my dream to come back here and spend a leisurely week or two with nothing to do but to enjoy the lovely promenades, magnificent views, some good wine, and wonderful food with friends. After saying goodbye to beautiful Ronda, we stop in Cordoba, a city that was founded by the Romans to ship Spanish olive oil, wine, and wheat back to ancient Rome. A magnificent bridge from Roman times was once the main crossing over the river and is now reserved for walking. We start our visit with a typical tourist activity, a horse carriage ride through the streets of Cordoba. I sit back to enjoy the ride and the sounds of the horses' hooves on the cobblestone street. But we have come to explore the centerpiece of this glorious city, the Mezquita, one of the largest mosques of the 10th century. At that time, Cordoba was the capital city of the Moorish kingdom of El Andalus, and was known as a city of poets and scholars, with tolerance among all religions. The outside wall of the Mezquita has the appearance of a fortress, with elaborate sets of Moorish-style archways and windows. Approaching the Mezquita, the first thing you notice is a bell tower that was built in the 1600s over a minaret of the mosque, after it was converted into a church by the Christians in 1236. The new Christian rulers of the city were so awed by the beauty of the mosque that they left it standing, building their cathedral in the midst of rows of arches and columns, and creating the extraordinary church mosque. I stand before a forest of columns receding into the distance, topped with double horseshoe arches colored in red and white stripes. The effect of the repeating design is mesmerizing. Surrounded by the majestic columns, your eyes adjust to the soft interior light. The most spectacular arch is that of the mihrab, and I am naturally drawn to it. Unlike the other arches decorated in simple designs, it is decorated with stylized Arabic writing, and was the focus of the former mosque. It is a strange sensation to see how the simple beauty of the mosque transforms itself somewhere in the middle of the building to the over-the-top ornate Gothic and Renaissance architecture of the Christian church. It is hard to believe it is the same building. The design of the mosque emphasizes the fact that all people are equal when they come to pray. The Christian cathedral is ornately designed and decorated to impress upon the people the power of God and the authority of the priests over the people. It is a unique opportunity to compare the differences between Muslim and Christian architecture. This building stands as a reminder of the glory and importance of Cordoba in medieval times. We leave the Mesquita filled with the awe of Cordoba's glorious past and take a short walk through some of the streets of Cordoba on the way to the Roman bridge, where we will cross to our waiting bus. Looking back across the bridge at Old Cordoba, the church is clearly visible, rising above the mosque. From Cordoba to Úbeda, we pass through some of the most beautiful country that I have seen in Spain. The rolling mist and shrouded hills of this farming country makes me want to yell, "Stop the bus!" But I must satisfy myself with hurried photos taken through a bus window as we make our way to Úbeda. Olive groves cover the hills, and I learn that Úbeda is famous for the quality of the olive oil that is produced near the city. We stay 2 nights in a 16th century palace converted into a parador. The hotel facade conceals an elegant and relaxing interior courtyard. We meet the owner of a local olive oil mill outside of Úbeda and travel together to the mill, where his family produces some of the best olive oil of the region. While touring the facility, he explains the modern process of extraction to our group. Time for olive oil tasting. We sample 3 different olive oils produced here and enjoy making and eating simple tapas. Betty is in charge of the sangria, and several of us lend a hand with the tapas. After the tapas, we share a special meal with Papa and Mama, the patriarchs of the family. This is the highlight of our day. What a great experience! A chance to buy something from the gift shop before our return to Úbeda. An after-lunch walk is called for to help burn off some of the calories we consumed at lunch. A nice finish to a wonderful day of new experiences in and around Úbeda. Our vacation is drawing to an end as we head for Madrid, our final destination. We pass through countryside where the man of La Mancha, Don Quixote, tilted at windmills. The plan is to explore Toledo on the way to Madrid. We hurry out of the bus at a scenic spot of Toledo overlooking the Tagus River. What a magnificent view! I grab a couple of shots as quickly as I can and pause to let someone take a selfie. She eventually moves just as a heavy downpour arrives, and we all run for the bus. That's all, folks. Toledo was known as the city of 3 cultures in the Middle Ages, a place where Christian, Muslim, and Jewish communities peacefully coexisted. Under Moorish rule, a library was established, and translations of classical Greek works were kept there. Toledo became a hub for scholars in search of knowledge. When the Christians regained control in 1085, A school of translators was established in the Cathedral of Toledo, built on the site of a former grand mosque. Their job was to translate books of classical Greek culture and knowledge held in the Moorish library. After the Dark Ages, this knowledge spread throughout Christian Europe. This cathedral, with its light-filled interior, is absolutely breathtaking. It was built over a period of 267 years. A skylight illuminates one of the altars with magical light. Behind the main altar is a huge altarpiece of gilded and painted larchwood that stretches to the ceiling. The altarpiece actually summarizes the entire New Testament. The town of Toledo and the painter El Greco are forever connected, as he painted some of his great works here. The painting known as the Disrobing of Christ illustrates El Greco's best-known style of elongated figures. The Burial of Count Orgaz shows heaven and earth in one painting. To sample the former Jewish culture in Toledo, we visit the Synagogue of Santa Maria la Blanca. Inside, I see a synagogue like I have never seen before. The decorations are clearly Islamic in nature. Why is this? The answer is simple. The best architects and builders of the time were Islamic, so they built in the style that they knew best. A strangely beautiful synagogue is the result. In 1391, a massacre in Toledo killed nearly all the Jews of that city. The synagogue was turned into a church, and today it is a museum. The expulsion of Muslims and Jews from Spain in 1492 ended the era of peaceful coexistence. Our visit to Toledo gives us only a taste of what this magnificent city has to offer as we continue on to Madrid. Time to start thinking about the journey home. Madrid is full of monumental statues and beautiful buildings, but I only had a glimpse of this lovely town. Our walk from the hotel takes us to the Park of the Pleasant Retreat, a large park at the edge of the city center. It is filled with beautiful sculptures, monuments, galleries, and a peaceful lake. This park became the centerpiece of Habsburg court life at a time when Spain was the foremost power in the world. It is now a public park for all to enjoy. The avenue of statues is decorated with statues of kings from the royal palace, sculpted between 1750 and 1753. The park is a pleasant place to stroll on this quiet day in Madrid. A bronze statue of Philip IV of Spain, on a rearing horse, stands at the center of a plaza near the royal palace. The mathematician Galileo determined the proper distribution of the center of gravity to keep the statue from falling over. Another remarkable sight near the palace, you can have your photo taken as a matador or a flamenco dancer. All this walking around on a cool morning has made us yearn for something hot to drink and energize us for more walking. We take a break from seeing the sights for a mid-morning snack of hot chocolate and churros, a Spanish tradition. The Plaza Mayor is the historic center of Madrid and was once the site of a bullfighting arena. Executions were held here during the Inquisition. Today, the plaza is a traffic-free zone where tourists and locals can mingle, and street performers can pursue the tourists. This headless performer was hard to avoid as he stalked down the tourist to get them to take his photo, for a price, of course. A very lively place on this sunny afternoon. The next morning we have to ourselves to explore the city, but the morning dawns with, you guessed it, more rain. In the afternoon, when the rain lets up, I take a few photos of nearby buildings and think about this most wonderful experience of visiting Portugal and Spain. Although we had plenty of rain, there were times of indescribable beauty that can only be experienced in the times between the storms. There is nothing like the feeling after a storm as you venture out into a refreshed world. I shall always remember this journey as one of discovery and joy that I shared with others as we learned new things and experienced new pleasures.